Hmm.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Taylor, and you're listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, your weekly digest of hobby goodness. I've been looking forward to this conversation for longer than this podcast has existed, as I've spent untold hours and unmentionable dollars chasing the cards that this company have made. Rittenhouse Archives are responsible for some cards in my collection that literally bring me to tears of joy when I look at them. They also created some of the most beloved Marvel cards ever, and arguably the Marvel cards today would be much less healthy if it weren't for their tenure. So it gives me enormous pride and pleasure to be able to say that today brings Steve Charendoff, president of Rittenhouse Archives, to the show. Steve, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, thank you for making the time. I really appreciate it. Um, I've read quite a lot of things, quite a lot of bios of you online, and I remember seeing you on at least one podcast on YouTube a couple of years back, which I thoroughly enjoyed watching. Um, but I kind of wanted to hear it from your mouth. How did you get started in trading cards? What was your route
Oh,
into the hobby?
wow. Now we're going real far back.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do it.
this goes this goes back to the '60s when I was not even I was in single digits at that point.
Wow. Okay.
So I collected cards. I've been collecting cards. I still do. I've collected cards all my life. Um, like a lot of people who I'm sure are listening to this or watching this. You either have that card collecting gene in your DNA or you don't, and I do, um, which is not coincidental to my being in the position that I've been in professionally. Um, Although I didn't set out to do this for my livelihood or my career, it just sort of evolved that way, and like a lot of things. Some serendipitous moments kind of brought me to a place where I fortunately could make that decision or make that choice to, yeah, let's get involved in trading cards as a business, instead of just collecting. But I've always been a collector, and I collected everything from a very early age: sports cards, non-sports cards. I remember having the Marvel cards from the '60s. I'm pretty sure those would have been um, the Philadelphia Gum Company cards,
Yeah.
um, which of course are tough to find these days. But
Yeah.
in any case, so I collected all my life, and um, wow, try to give you the real quick version that led me up to starting Rittenhouse.
Well,
So,
I tell you what I want to dig into. I
okay.
want to have a little I want to have a little chat and hear what it was like um, at Fleer Skybox
Okay, fair
because
enough. That's where it really began in terms of Marvel,
exactly.
for
Well,
sure.
Ken Baroff, who was episode I want to say 51, but I might be wrong. He
Hmm.
mentioned you on that episode and your kind of approach and passion for the hobby. So how do you get to work there and work with Ken?
Ken and I actually didn't work together much at all. We overlapped for a very short period of time. Um, okay, so just to recap, I guess a little bit of the corporate history here. So, I joined Fleer at the end of 1994. After having worked for another trading card slash memorabilia company and scoreboard classic games. Um, and I'd done other things before then too that were somewhat hobby related. Um, but in any case, I was hired by Bill Jemis, at Fleer at the time. That was okay. So that was in '94. Bill had just started the entertainment card division for Fleer, which basically at the time was all Marvel.
Yeah.
Bill, of course, went on to work as, I think he was president of Marvel Comics for a period of time after his time at Fleer. But in any case, um, Bill wanted to expand from Marvel cards into other franchises. But very shortly after I joined him, which would have been fall of '94, we ended up buying Skybox. And that took place, I guess, early '95, I want to say. Maybe the very tail end of '94, perhaps. But the two companies, um, were running sort of on parallel tracks. There was a lot of duplication of effort. And so when the two companies came together, the powers that be had to decide, well, we're not going to keep everybody doing, all these different things when some of these tasks can be combined. And they were determined to move the company from the Skybox portion of the business up to Mount Laurel, New Jersey, which is where Fleer was based. And Ken, if I'm recalling correctly, made the choice that he was not going to move. I think he was given the opportunity to move, but he had family and roots in North Carolina, and I think that's, if I'm remembering correctly, I think that was just a choice, and that was true for several people. I ended up taking on uh, the Star Trek business from Ken, among some other franchises. And so, anyway, so the two companies came together, and we then had DC Comics and Marvel Comics together, along with a bunch of other things that were, all of a sudden we went from, being limited to just these few franchises to all of a sudden, boom, we've got
Mm.
this enormous business to run. And it was really pretty cool, and great for me because I on a lot of this business. But I was not really involved in Marvel directly at that beginning period. So Dan Buckley, who is now the publisher of Marvel Comics, um, great guy, couldn't have been better suited to running the Marvel trading card business at the time. And I can't think of a better guy to be the publisher of Marvel Comics since. I mean, it's quite remarkable, all the people that were involved in some way with the Marvel trading cards and other aspects of the Fleer Skybox entertainment card business. What some of those people have gone on to do has
Mm.
just been remarkable. But Dan in particular, couldn't ask for a better guy to head that up. But so Dan was involved, and then there was a few other guys. Ron Peraza, who I think works at DC Comics now. Steve Domzalski, who I don't believe is in the industry anymore. I think after his time at Fleer, I think he went on to just other things. So those guys were really running the Marvel business. But what's interesting to me, and what your listeners might or viewers might find interesting here, is that um, at one point we bridged that gap from just mass producing everything. And the numbers back then, in the early '90s, mid '90s, were staggering
Oh,
until the market sort of, I mean, it imploded a little bit on
yeah.
itself. Um, that's a whole other topic for maybe another day.
Yeah.
Sort of mismanagement of the trading card industry in general, and
Mm.
you know, anyway, I won't get into that right now. But once the industry started to contract, and now we were back to more of the hardcore collectors. I'm sure a lot of the people who were watching this are among those people who collected back then. Um, so the sketch cards became, a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, those guys might remember this differently, but this is how I remember it. So I'm going to phrase it that way. They were putting together the Fleer Ultra Spider-Man card
97.
set.
Hmm.
Okay, as far as I can remember, that was the first card set that ever had Marvel sketch cards in them,
That's
and
right.
there were very few. They were very, very scarce, and I know they're quite valuable today if you can find them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's almost no unopened boxes of that stuff around. Um, Anyhow, I was always big into with the other products that I was making. I was always big into doing like, you know, really unusual, one of a kind, rare type stuff, goofy things that I thought you know, would appeal to the diehard collectors. So my recollection of this is that I said to those guys, we were just sitting around, shooting the breeze one day. I said, look, why don't you just get some of these artists to do some one of a kind sketch cards and throw them into the product? And I seem to remember, it's a little fuzzy in my mind, so bear with me here, but I seem to remember suggesting that they see if Stan Lee would do some sketch cards, because like what would be like the holy grail of Marvel trading card collectible, whatever it might be. Like
Hmm.
you can foil stamp this, and you can do lenticulars with that, and you can number things and parallels, but I mean, holy smokes! I mean, if you got Stan Lee, or I mean, at the time, I don't think Jack Kirby was still alive, and I think Ditko just refused to do anything when he
Yeah.
was alive. Um, but we thought, okay, I thought, why don't you guys go ask Stan Lee? Because Stan was always like accessible, and we were part of Marvel anyway at the time.
Mm.
Marvel was our parent company, so they got one card done by Stan Lee, just one. But anyway, I'm going to take credit for. I'm not going to take credit for all of it, but I'm going to take credit for a lot of this. That the genesis of doing the sketch cards that are randomly inserted into the product, because I had seen that like with Simpsons, Matt Groening had done the Art to Bart
Yeah.
cards, and there had been a couple of instances like that, and I thought, well, what's a more natural thing to do than sketch cards for Marvel, because it's all that's all that it is really. It's at that point it was just comic book art.
Mm.
We hadn't really gotten into the movies in any meaningful way at that point. So anyway, long story short, that was sort of like the first baby step that we all took into the realm of sketch cards. So a little bit after that time, things at Fleer Skybox started to unravel. The corporate structure was a mess, and um, the powers that be at that time decided that they were going to get out of entertainment cards. They didn't see the future in it. It was all about sports cards. So slowly, all those other guys were either let go or they just moved on because they just had other opportunities, and they knew that there wasn't really a long term future there. Um, and like I said, these guys all seem to land on their feet doing great things,
Yeah.
especially Dan Buckley. Um, so at the end, I was kind of the last. I know I was the last full time employee at Fleer Skybox who was fully dedicated to the entertainment division. There was a lot of other people who worked on entertainment, but their attention was divided from sports and other things. Um, but all I did was entertainment, and the mantra, more or less, or the message to me was, look, you can run this thing. We don't really care about it anymore. Don't lose any money. Don't screw it up. They had licenses that they had to fulfill, so
Yeah.
there was a certain sense of obligation there, at least to earn out what could be earned out, and not just pay money for nothing.
Yeah.
Even though as a company, their heart wasn't really in it, but my heart was in it. So in a way, it was very liberating for me personally, because all of a sudden, no one was looking over my shoulder. No, like as long as I was competent, which I knew I was, I I could do anything I wanted. So that's when we got to Marvel Creators Collection in 1998.
8. Hmm.
And wait, I'm trying to remember now. Which came first, Marvel Creators Collection or Silver Age?
I think. Well, I think they were both in the same year. I just can't remember which came out first.
I think Creators Collection came out
Yeah, I
first.
think you're right. Yeah,
Okay,
but I'm
so
still chipping away at the autographs for that one.
yeah. Um, so at that point, we had already seen the success and the hunger for those few sketch cards that people were able to find out of the Fleer Ultra Spider-Man set, which
Mm,
great set of cards. And I wish I, I wish I could take more credit for it. But I can't. It wasn't my product. But Creators Collection was entirely mine, and so was Silver Age. And as a fan of comic books from that period, I mean, to me, the Silver Age is where it all began.
yeah.
And I love Stan Lee. I love Jack Kirby's art, John Romita Sr. I mean, to me, like Jack Kirby was the Babe Ruth of comic book art. John Romita Sr., the Mickey Mantle, if you want to use a sports analogy. I don't know if that resonates with you in the UK.
I
Uh,
get the references, but they
you
mean
know
very little to,
the
to me
the
personally. Yeah.
the David Beckham of comic art, so to speak, I guess. But
Now you're
in any
talking.
case, yeah. Anyhow, so I loved who those guys were. I knew a lot about the backstories. I knew about a lot of at that time, what was happening to a lot of those very iconic personalities, who really had not been well taken care of,
Mm,
like not by today's standards, and even when you think about all that they did to develop these characters and what Stan did. At least Stan lived long enough to see through some significant amount of financial success,
mm,
even though it didn't come at the time that a lot of his influence was exerted on these characters and their evolution. It came sort of later after, I guess maybe there was a certain amount of pressure on the part of these studios that bought Marvel, maybe to take care of him,
mm.
because nobody wanted to see Stan, doing things that maybe weren't dignified for Stan because he needed money or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But so they ended up taking care of him, which was the right thing to do. And I think in a lot of instances they took care of the other artists, maybe not entirely, but enough. Anyway, I'm sort of getting off track here. But I knew that a lot of these people were still alive. So we're talking about John Buscema and Sal Buscema and Gene Colan,
Tusker.
Marie Severin,
Yeah.
George Tuska,
Mm-mm.
a lot of people, they were all still alive.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy smokes, like no one has ever asked these people to do
Dick
anything.
Ayres. Yeah, Dick Ayres was in there as well.
Yeah, Dick Ayers. No
Mm,
one has ever asked these people to do anything with trading cards before. And like to me, I'm a kid in a candy store because
mm.
I could see, in my mind, I could see all these different kinds of projects that could come to life, playing off of the nostalgic quality of of Marvel. And so that's where the Silver Age set, was born. And that I think that still remains my all-time favorite Marvel card set that I ever worked on, just because no one had ever done anything like that before with those artists, and they were so appreciative of being asked to do this. And
Wow.
as a collective group, like I think they all sort of appreciated that. It wasn't like they were just sort of doing something for some you know, odd project that really, had nothing specifically to do with them. This really was all about them.
It was a celebration of
And
them
it was a
and their
celebration of
work.
them individually,
Hmm.
and more importantly, a celebration of them collectively.
Yeah.
Like we were paying homage to them in, I thought, a really cool way. So obviously we got them all to sign cards. We got them all to do sketch cards. Still among my favorites. I mean, it brings me to tears. I know you sort of touched on this yourself. Like, it brings me to tears when I see the ones that John Romita Sr. did.
Mm.
Even though they're not the most elaborate sketches, but
Oh, they're
you know,
beautiful. They're unmistakably him, you know.
yeah. And we did get Stan, of course, to do a handful of. I guess he did mostly half Spidey heads. Trying to think, he did sketches for us a few times. So I'm,
Mm.
after all these years, I've sort of lost track a little bit of which product he did what for. But in any case, he was involved too, and of course he signed cards as well. And those cards, to my, I guess, surprise, maybe even, as iconic as Stan has always been. Um, it surprises me even now, like how valuable those autograph cards are.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Anyhow, so those were the two projects that I worked on, start to finish. Nobody else really had any involvement because there wasn't anybody else to be involved. I mean, Dan had gone at that point, Steve and Ron had gone at that point. It was just sort of me coming up with ideas that, as a collector, I thought, well, why don't we just make these kinds of sets?
Mm.
And then we did. And then was that shortly after that that I left to start Rittenhouse. So I'll stop there and I'll let you ask any other questions that you may have about this.
Well, no, for me, albeit this is the Marvel Card Collectors podcast, I'm a man who wades in many streams. So I have my binder of Star Trek here, and I have a binder up there that Ken Baroff gifted me shortly after because he went into his garage and basically cleaned house. And so because I know that you were looking after Star Trek as well as the Marvel sets.
Yeah.
And didn't they kind of go with you to Rittenhouse?
Well, yeah, although not right away.
Okay.
Um, so I'll try to make this the short version of the story, I guess. So I kind of had enough at that point working for a company that really didn't know what it wanted, and poor management and lots of other things that ultimately led to the company going out of business. So I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and I wanted to do my own thing anyway.
Mm.
So without getting into all those gory details, I remember going into the office one day, and then there was a moment during that day where, yeah, I'm leaving. Um, and I didn't go into the office that day thinking I was leaving that day, but I did leave, and there were certain things that happened anyway. So it's not like I left with, I didn't have any promises, or I didn't have any licenses that were in my back
Gotcha.
pocket.
Mm.
It was just okay. That's it.
Yeah.
I've done everything that I want to do in this company. We'll see what's next in my life. And I still wanted to do more in trading cards. So, I reached out to the people that I had good relationships with, and that started with Star Trek. That was those were the closest relationships, and I got a license to make trading cards for Twilight Zone, the classic Twilight Zone TV series, and for Star Trek as well. And it took a little bit of time for me to get the Star Trek rights exclusively, because there was a period of time even after I left that Fleer Skybox still had rights, and they still somebody made product. I'm not even sure who it was. It was probably somebody who didn't want to do it, but one or two more Star Trek products before they just called it quits.
Was that,
And at that,
the Cinema 2000 set
yeah, that was one
is
of them.
is
I,
but one of the last ones with the Skybox logos on, if I remember correctly.
yeah, yeah. There was a Deep Space Nine set that I had started and had worked on. I forget if that was Memories from the Future.
That
I
rings a
think that
bell.
might have
Yeah.
been it.
Mm.
It came out sometime either in '99 or maybe, yeah, probably in '99. I had started the project and somebody else has picked it up and finished it. Um, but anyway, so I picked up that license, as well eventually, along with other things. I mean, we picked up some really good business. We were the first company to make trading cards for a sci-fi show called Farscape, which at the
Mm.
time was pretty cutting edge and kind of kind of funky show that had a good following. I love that show. Um, and was instrumental in the growth of our business, actually. Um, and we picked up other franchises like Stargate and Xena, Warrior Princess, um, and then it was a few years later. I'd have to go back and look specifically at what the date was, but um, I remember talking with Jerry Bennington, who was um, he was the Marvel guy at Upper Deck. This is probably around two. Well, you could probably tell me based on when the product came out, but I think well, let me back up a second. So I approached Jerry, who was a really good guy, and I said to him, "Look, you guys have the license to make Marvel trading cards, but you're not really doing anything with it." I think they were just doing card games at the
Mm.
time. That was Jerry's orientation, really, was with the games, not so much traditional cards. I said, "Look, why don't you guys sub-license us here at Rittenhouse? We'll make the product. You guys can, take a piece of whatever we do, and it's money for nothing for you guys. You don't have to do any work. We'll do all the work, and we'll share with you." And that's how that started. I want to say the first product that we did under that sub license was the complete Avengers.
That's right.
If I'm not
2006. Yeah.
okay, so there you
Mm.
go. So 2006. So from there we had, I don't know, maybe it was about 2 years worth of products that we worked with them on that joint venture sub licensing basis. Um, and it was very successful. I mean, I think the Complete Avengers was a cool set. I love working on that. To me,
Mm.
the Complete Avengers was sort of like Silver Age Series Two in a way,
Yeah.
because what Avengers gave us the opportunity to do was tap into a huge number of characters within a more narrow theme. Like I didn't want to do Silver Age 2 under Rittenhouse, which having already done Silver Age at Fleer Skybox, because that would have sort of seemed like I'm repeating myself.
Mm.
I wanted to start going a little more deeply into some of the sub themes within Marvel, some of the character families and the teams and that sort of thing. So there was Fantastic Four, there's Avengers, obviously, Spider Man. What else did we tackle?
Because you had Woman of
Well,
Marvel, then you had Spider-Man Archives, Fantastic Four Archives,
the
and then
Fantastic Four was always my favorite as a kid,
yeah.
and it always mystified me why it it fell out of you can't say out of favor, but it didn't hold up over time. But I think as I look back on it, and I think even then when I was making decisions about what card sets to make, I knew going into that Fantastic Four set that it wasn't going to be the most popular seller because Avengers was more popular at that point. There's more characters in the Avengers.
Mm.
Spider-Man certainly had become more popular. Um, anyway, it was a pet project. I just loved the Fantastic Four, and I thought they deserved their due,
Mm.
even though the studio wasn't really emphasizing them. And I guess they've always proven to be, a difficult franchise to translate to either the small screen or the big screen
Yeah.
for reasons that are kind of hard to figure out. Because I mean, I realize that, and maybe I'm getting off topic here, so stop me if you want to
No, carry
get
on.
back to
No, it's a
cards and
pleasure to hear
magic.
you to hear you talk.
Well, the characters of the Fantastic Four, individually and collectively, just I guess don't really lend themselves easily to appearing in live action format. I mean, the Thing is a hard character
Mm.
to and they've never really been successful doing that. I mean, it
Yeah.
always looks a little weird. As great as like that character was always a favorite of mine as a kid. It's clobbering time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
a great comic book character, but in real life, always looked a little weird.
Mm,
And I think the same thing with the other members of that group. Just odd. I mean, Johnny Storm with being the Human Torch, and it's just funny though because you think about like it could have been weird that way with the Hulk and Thor and Iron Man, and like to me, Iron Man would have intuitively seemed like a weak character to market around and a weak character to translate into live action, and yet Iron Man became the focal
the
point of
genius of starting with that. It's
yeah.
just
Well, but
remarkable.
it was born out of necessity. They didn't do it
Well,
because
yeah.
they wanted to. They did it because they had to.
Mm,
They had given Spider-Man to Sony, and so they didn't really have ownership and control of it at the time. And some of the other characters sort of fell
mm.
into that trap as well. So they had to work with what was available to them. And anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. So back to the issue of we had the sub license with Upper Deck, which which went very very successfully until Jerry Bennington left Upper Deck to go. I forget where he left to go to, but anyway, he left, and suddenly I didn't have anybody at Upper Deck who really understood what we had been doing together. Um, and I don't know that Jerry's replacement was as enthusiastic about the franchise itself, just in general terms. I mean, you got to have a passion for this.
Mm.
Like anything in the collectibles world. At least this has been my experience. If you have a passion for it, if you can really enjoy these characters outside of any sort of business framework. Like I grew up a fan of Fantastic Four and Avengers,
Mm.
and I'm sure Jerry was the same way. And look, I've run into this many times over the course of my career where I run into people who get brought into the trading card world, may have very classic business backgrounds, working for consulting companies and working for classic brand management type companies,
Yeah.
consumer products, goods, and stuff like that. And then they try to apply those because people don't buy these products based on need. They buy these products based on emotion and on what makes them happy.
Yeah.
And it's just ink on paper. I mean, when you boil it down, that's all that it is. But
Hmm.
what appears on within that ink on paper? Does it make you happy? Does it bring you back to your childhood? Does it make you feel something that you felt when you were 10 years old, or maybe when you're 50 years old?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got to resonate with you in some way. And so the decisions that go into making these products and why we choose to do certain things or not to do, like I mentioned before, like the Fantastic Four set was a pet
Yeah.
project. I just did it because I loved it, and you know, I knew it would be successful on some level. I knew it wasn't going to be the biggest selling Marvel product we ever made, but anyway, so be it. But I had a passion for it,
Mm.
and because of that, I made it work. Probably, most other people who would be put in that position of, okay, what are you going to do next with Marvel? I mean, unless they grew up collecting and had a similar mindset, maybe they skip over that one, and maybe they don't even do sketch cards, and maybe they don't do a lot of things that I thought made a lot of sense. But I approach this from the standpoint of I'm a collector first and foremost.
Yes.
What do I want out of a product that that I make so that other people can buy that I want to collect too? I just have the luxury of not having to buy the boxes and packs myself. I just have them because
Yeah.
I make them. But it's still the same thing. I mean, I think of it the same way you do, and a lot of
Mm.
people who are perhaps watching this now that you why do you buy? Because it makes you happy.
Mm,
That's all we're doing is we're trying to make people happy, and hopefully we succeed at doing that. All right, so
absolutely.
back to where we were a minute ago. So Jerry Bennington leaves Upper Deck, and then the wheels on the cart sort of fell off with that relationship. I won't get into all the dirty details
Can
about that.
I
It's not
can I
it's
just
not important.
can I just ask one question? So did
Yeah,
you mentioned earlier that you started working on Marvel on was it a sub license you mentioned? So
yeah.
does that mean that Upper Deck had that main license throughout that entire period?
Only at the beginning.
Ah, okay.
So the complete Avengers, the Spider-Man 3 movie cards
Hmm.
that was where Tobey Maguire signed autographs for us.
Oh yeah, they're hot now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
And then you've got Iron Man as well.
the first Iron Man product I think was Rittenhouse, not under sublicense.
Ah, that's the first Iron Man movie card set. Yeah, in 2008.
Think so. I mean, it's easy enough if anybody has one of those cards. If on the back of it, it would either have an Upper Deck logo or it wouldn't. I don't remember that card having an Upper Deck logo on it, but if
Keep
you've got one
talking.
hand,
I can
go
reach.
take.
I think I've got one auto from that set, and it's not
Well, you
Robert
don't even
Downey
have
Jr.
yeah, any cards from that set would be
Yeah.
the same. It doesn't have to be an autograph card, but
Oh no, it's Thor. I've got Coulson, but it's from a Thor movie set, not from the Iron
okay.
Man set.
Well,
Never mind.
not a big deal. Um, so basically, what happened from there is that there came a point where we needed to know whether we were moving forward on a sub licensing basis or not, and the people at Upper Deck who were there at the time, I guess, didn't really. I don't think they knew whether they even wanted to continue with Marvel
Mm,
at least in terms of trading cards. And at that point, the people from Marvel knew who we were because we had been making the products and been very successful with it. And it was a totally incremental revenue stream suddenly. Here they were with, before we came along, Upper Deck making, I think, a successful line of gaming cards. And then we came
versus
along and
system.
added to
Yeah.
that and made the traditional trading cards. And so obviously the studio was aware of it. Jamie Campbell, who was still in, not with, she doesn't work for Marvel anymore, but she's still in the industry. Um, she was the licensing representative from Marvel at the time. And she came to me and she said, well, you know, this has been so successful. Why don't we just dispense with the sub license and we'll just work directly with you at this point? Because it seems that Upper Deck just wants to do the gaming cards anyway, and it'll be cleaner and easier for everybody at this point. So that's what we did, and that was the beginning of Rittenhouse having um, the our own license to make the Marvel cards, and then we moved forward with obviously many more products based on Spider-Man and the Avengers and um, lots of other subcategories. The Women of Marvel,
Oh yeah.
Dangerous
Dangerous
Divas.
Divas. Yeah, I've
We
got
did
those.
the Bronze Age. Another favorite
70th
of mine,
anniversary, 75th
70th
anniversary. Yeah.
anniversary. Yeah, I mean those were great, fun projects to work on, and obviously throughout that period of time, we generated an enormous volume of artwork on sketch cards.
Yes.
I mean, just really, I think back on it sometimes, and no pun intended, but I marvel at how much material we actually created and how successful that was. I mean, finding new artists was always fun. Uncovering the next, hot sketch card artist. It would sort of be like once a year. It felt like there was always somebody who emerged.
Yeah, there's always
You
a
know,
hot new one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and you'd see cards selling on the secondary market for crazy amounts of money, and that would always be fun to see. And sometimes I'd scratch my head and be like, "Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Mm.
As nice as the art might have appeared in the samples and even what came in before it got released. I mean, because we'd see everything and it would all be submitted for approvals and so on. But it's the one thing that I never took for granted in making sketch cards for those projects is, and even now, there's no accounting for what people will find interesting and compelling and want to collect. What I think looks like a great sketch card, somebody else might think, okay, it's all right, and then vice versa. I might think,
Yeah.
it's okay, and then it's just it's it's such a weird dynamic, but it comes back again, excuse me, to the notion that these products exist to make people happy. It resonates with people on an emotional basis,
Mm.
and artistically, it's certainly it's as true with sketch cards as it is with just, I guess, artwork in general. I mean, you want to put a painting on the wall in your living room. I mean, does it speak to you? Does it make you happy? It doesn't have to be valuable for it to make you happy. It doesn't, but it can. I mean,
Mm.
but you never know. There's no objective um, way of quantifying what's good, what's not good, what's mediocre or whatever. The only thing I will say though about this is that we always took it seriously, and we still do, even though we're not making Marvel cards and haven't for a while. We take it very seriously what does go on a sketch card, because we don't want something that looks like it was drawn by a 3-year old, um, or just somebody who is incompetent.
Mm.
And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I do see cards at times that appear in some products, and I wonder, like, who approved that? Who thought that was a good idea? Stick figure, like, very, I don't know. Look, it's all subjective. I realize it. I've said it before, and I guess I'll keep saying it is just very subjective. But to me, there are some minimal criteria, at
Yeah.
least
There's a
for
standard.
what is.
There's at least a standard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not about quantity to me, it's about quality.
Mm.
Even though I think we achieved both at the height of what we were
Oh my
doing with
goodness.
Marvel.
Yeah.
We could make 10,000 boxes, every one of them having a sketch card, and I think you could put all 10,000 of those sketch cards in front of a panel of however many people, in front of 10 people, let's say, and 9,990 of those cards are going to be looked upon as being product worthy by all 10 of them. And then maybe there's that small number of cards where
Yeah.
it's like, maybe that one slipped by. um, it might happen, but by and large, I think we always did a very good job and took a lot of pride, and not just me, it's the team that works for me, because I certainly wasn't the guy doing all of that legwork. But our team, I think, did a really good job of keeping quality control, and at a very high level, and
It,
certainly by comparison to some of the other products that have been made since.
mm. It is Warren actually did go into that. He was mentioning that he was kind of on point for a period there of actually kind of helping to nurture some of the talent coming up as well and coming into the cards, and just being that art director for the sketch card artists, and the stuff that was coming into your product. I mean, the amount
Yeah,
of work that must have entailed is mind-boggling with the volume of sketch cards and artists that you had on some of the sets.
yeah, yeah. But look, it was a priority to us,
Mm.
and we needed to do it. We had to
Yeah.
do it. It wasn't like we weren't a sports card company that was just sort of, making this other thing along the way. And, if it came out good, great. And if it didn't, well, who cares? No, for
Mm.
us, it was always, this is what we do. This is what we want to be remembered for. And we always took that very seriously. Warren was always, and always has been, great to work with. Certainly one of the best artists that we ever worked with, and have always had a good relationship with him. Going back to those products at Fleer Skybox, that's how we first met. The one interesting thing, though, since you mentioned this about the artists, is that I'm remembering things as we're talking through here. So it's kind of fun to have this stream of consciousness.
No, I love it. I love it. It's exactly what
Um,
we do on this show. So,
yeah. So one of the things that was very cool to see and and kind of encourage over the years is the kind of the competitive nature of the artists.
mm,
They would often see each other's work. That a lot of times the artists, because it's a tight community. I mean, a lot of these people were connected to each other, and they would see what they're
yeah.
doing for us before we would see it. And Warren might see something that someone else was doing, and although I don't think Warren was so much guilty of this as maybe some other artists being just competitive, like, wow, look at what that guy's doing. I'm going to do something maybe to try to top that. And that's when we started getting into some of the really cool stuff that would show
Mm,
up. Like I can't, honestly, I can't think of all the names off the top of my head, but I know there would be sketch cards that would come in, like the FedEx would come in, we'd open the box and it would be like, oh my God, there's like 30 fully oil painted,
Jack Red used to do
like,
oil painted
I mean,
cards.
these aren't sketch cards
Mm,
anymore. These are like fully rendered
Charles
oil
Hall.
paintings.
Yeah.
Just Yeah, it just happens to be
Mm,
in this, 2.5 by 3.5 inch
yeah.
format. They wanted to one up each other in a nice way. I mean, it wasn't like no one was trying to make anybody feel bad or look bad. It was just that, this is their chance to do something really cool. For a lot of these
Mm,
artists, this was maybe their first and sometimes only opportunity to work on an officially sanctioned, licensed Marvel project. Um, it's a resume builder in some respects.
yeah.
Some of these artists went on to go working for Marvel as
Yeah.
comic book artists, and
Yeah.
and even to work, in other ways for the studio. Could be making storyboards for movies or what have you. And I mean, that was always the sad part for us. I can think of a couple of people where that happened, where they got so good working through the medium of trading cards, and they were noticed by people at the studio that they got assigned other work that became more important to their livelihood, and they couldn't dedicate for that reason. But I always took that as kind of as a badge of honor too. I mean,
Yeah.
for us to have given some of these people a platform to succeed. I mean, it's like watching your own kids' life and to go on to bigger and better things. Not that there's anything bigger and better than trading cards, mind you, but um, debatable. But in any case, it was always fun, to even though it was disappointing when someone said they couldn't work for us anymore. Well, why can't you work for us? Well, I'm working now for Marvel Studios or for the comic book division. I'm actually going to be doing inks on, She-Hulk or something. It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, I can't I can't be upset about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so again, I'm sort of veering off topic a little bit.
No, no, this is wonderful. Can you? I want to go back into some of the things that I think made your tenure on Marvel cards really special, but because we've
Mhm.
kind of gone to the point where you've kind of talked through the history of it, can you tell us about Marvel? Kind of what happened to when Marvel left your tenure, and then I want to go back in some of the fun stuff I mean, I'm not sure what you can tell us about that, but when did you kind
I,
of
I
get a
I'm
wind of it?
Well, I mean, the timeline is fairly obvious, I think, to, just based on the products and
Mm,
when they were
mm,
released.
mm-hmm.
So, we had, what was it, in 2015? Was that the last year?
Think so.
Um,
Let's have a look.
so I think we had an Avengers set that came out
Avengers
that
Silver
year.
Age,
That was the last comic set I think we did,
and
and
then
we did
Agents of
Agents of
Shield.
Shield Series Two
That's
or
it.
season two. I think that was the last set period.
Mm,
No, it just came to an end. This it was a little bittersweet, I guess, because obviously, um, I felt like I was instrumental in the success of the Marvel trading cards. For a long time, nobody cared, and there weren't companies that were invested at all in making Marvel trading cards. I mean, you had Comic Images back in I guess the late '80s, early
yeah,
'90s, and they fell by the wayside and they weren't really doing anything that clever or creative. They were just making product that was sort of mass produced, kind of kind of bland in a
yeah,
way. I
yeah.
mean, at the time, that's what people were doing. So I'm not.
Mm,
I mean, I can't fault them exactly for the kinds of products that they made. That's where the industry was at the time.
yeah,
It really wasn't until we got into the '90s, later into the '90s, that we were sort of pushing each other to be more creative and inventive. And Bill Jemis was the guy who, when he came to Fleer and started that division, and with Marvel Masterpieces was Bill, um, and Marvel Metal, and some of these other iconic brands that still have survived to this day. I
yeah,
think Upper Deck is still making cards that are built off of those brands.
yeah.
That's Bill Jemis. I don't know how many people would know that, but Bill was the guy. And you know, anyway, I felt like the challenge. Well, that's not the right word. Um, I think Marvel had been bought by Disney at that point. Towards the end of our run with the Marvel trading cards, there was an awful lot of turnover within the organization. The people that we had worked with for years were gone. The new people who would come in, I would say that there really wasn't a deep knowledge of, or any knowledge really of the history of the category of Marvel trading cards. Um, I think it was really just a function of corporate turnover, and there was nobody there at that time who knew what we had done, to help build this up and make it into something really substantial. And then at the same time, we became kind of guilty of, or no, guilty is the wrong word, victims of our own success in a way, because we had made this Marvel trading card franchise as successful as it was. I mean, next to Star Wars, which is you know on its own
A whole
level,
different ballgame. Yeah,
yeah, they're totally different. Leave Star Wars out of it. I mean, I think the Marvel card line was arguably the most prolific, successful, best-selling card line in the entertainment, segment of this market, and
mm,
we were really responsible for that. I mean, again, you go back to when we first approached Upper Deck about the sublicense. What were they doing with it? Nothing. You know, I was lucky enough to have had a sympathetic, like-minded, you know, colleague in Jerry Bennington who could see the merits of what we wanted to do, even though he was doing so much and it was so successful what they were doing with the card games. It just didn't. it didn't pay for them at that time to jump into what we wanted to jump into.
Mm.
Now, again, by comparison, Upper Deck, probably at that point in time had hundreds of employees. I don't know what they have today, but nowhere near what it was back then. We were a company of 3 or 4 employees, you know, totally dedicated to what we were doing. Star Trek, Marvel, Stargate, other
James Bond.
franchises, James Bond. We were doing deep dives into this material in a way that we felt really made the diehard fans and collectors of those cards happy, and wanted and encouraging them and giving them motivation for buying more. So at the end, Upper Deck, under a new management, this is like 2 or 3 generations past when we were involved with them. They saw an opportunity to do what we were doing, and they ended up with a license to make those cards too. So suddenly, this was, I think, fairly unprecedented on the entertainment side of this business, where you had 2 companies making product for the same entertainment franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, in sports, it had been done many, many times for many years, but the sports card market was much bigger. So for a while, there was Upper Deck and Rittenhouse both making entertainment, or rather Marvel cards. And at one point, I guess, whoever was in charge at the studio level just decided, we're just going to go with one company. The reason for that was never fully explained, because even at the end, we weren't quite doing the same things that they were doing. I thought we were mutually coexisting in a reasonably good way. There was enough going on. Like, they had some movies and we were doing some TV shows that they didn't seem to want to do, and we were doing some comic products that they weren't doing, and vice versa. So, I mean, there was a little bit of crossover, maybe a little bit of conflict there, in terms of, there being maybe at times product in the marketplace that was more than maybe we would have liked. I would just wait until February to put our comic card set out or what have you. But again, most of it was driven by the movies and TV shows, not so much the comic book material at that point. So their decision to go with one company didn't really make sense to me at the time. And nothing I could do about it. I just had to live with that, and which is fine. I mean, look, it's their right and their choice to do that. Where I thought it didn't make sense from a business standpoint is that there was so many different iterations within the Marvel universe. Like, if Upper Deck was suddenly all hot to trot to make trading cards for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and, gosh, what were the other shows back then? There was the one with
Agent Carter.
Agent Carter.
Then all
And
the Netflix ones, The
then the
Punisher,
Netflix
Daredevil.
shows.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did some of those eventually, but they didn't really do it in a way that was, from where I sit, it didn't seem like it was a full-throated effort, if you will.
More of an obligation, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. And even what they did do often, it would come out after the show was canceled, or
Yeah.
a lot of it just didn't quite, from a business standpoint, didn't quite make sense to me. But okay, look, I accomplished what I set out to accomplish, earlier on, and that was fine. My only concern in this industry, and it has nothing to do with any one franchise in particular. It's a general feeling that I have about this industry. I go back to what I said previously. We're in this business to make people happy. There is also, along those lines, the people that we do make happy, including myself. I say this with love. I mean, we all have kind of this a little bit of this obsessive compulsive nature to wanting to collect more stuff. And where I get upset is when there are products that are made that are sort of inferior and not made with that sensibility of, okay, what is the best thing that you could do with this TV show or with this movie or with this comic franchise, or what is it that you could do? And I always felt like, and to this day I still feel like, we're always putting forward our best effort that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not 100% successful. I mean, there's no one formula to it, and there might be somebody else who might have done something that we've done differently, and maybe would be better. But I think by and large, we're doing a pretty good job with Star Trek, and now we're doing Doctor Who,
That's
which
right.
like I look back and I see some of the products that were made for Doctor Who, and I'm like, really? That's the best they could have done?
You.
And all right, well, look, that's the way it goes. I mean, this isn't a perfect world. It's not a
No,
perfect
no, no,
industry,
no.
and I'm not saying that anybody did anything with any ill intent. It's just some of it may just be for lack of being passionate or having a full appreciation for why it is that people collect some of these
Mm,
things.
mm.
Um, anyway, I don't want to turn this into something
No,
that seems a
no,
little
no,
too negative. It's just, or that all of what we do doesn't stink, so to speak. But
no. Well,
um,
listen. I mean, one thing I've just jotted this down. You honor the IP that you're working with. That's what I've always respected about Rittenhouse, and you can see the passion in what you've done. Um, I mean, I've got some personal touch points I'll come on to in a moment. But one thing I love also is that you kind of honor the form of trading cards. So, and Ken Baroff mentioned this actually, the nine up, the nine card page in the binder, and I love that you guys have respected that over the years in where possible.
thank you.
Um, Nothing frustrates me more as someone who is starting to move out of set building and more curated collecting, for want of a better word. But nothing frustrates me more than a 10 card subset. Um,
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. We try to do things in multiples of 3, 6, and 9 in particular. Sometimes you run into a situation where there is a 10th character,
yeah, of
or
course.
there's 11 characters or 13, or some oddball number. And okay, as important as the rule of 9, as we sometimes refer to it, as important as the rule of 9 is, you're not going to leave out an important
Yeah.
character just
Well,
for the sake of that.
but that's what I mean. That's what I mean about honoring the IP, because that's a
Yeah,
circumstance where the property, the integrity of the property is more important than the nine card beauty that
yeah.
comes out. I've always loved. Just quickly want to touch on some of the things I love about Rittenhouse is the wrappers. You've always had this thing with the wrappers whereby people could send them in for the
Mhm.
points and you build them up. Do you still do that?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
So quite often, the people then can save up those points and then get a redemption card. So sometimes that redemption card pushes you over the nine cards.
Well, that's true. Okay, so there's where you have a conundrum.
Yeah.
Um, so you get 9 cards that come out of the packs, and those conveniently go into your album, and
Hmm.
we're all happy for that. But at the same time, we want to give stuff away,
Of course.
and we want to add that. That's the whole point of the rewards program, is to give people something more to add to their collections. That, I mean, quite honestly, it is easy for us to produce. Doesn't cost a lot for us to
Mm,
produce. In most instances, the point values sometimes reflect that, um, but what's better than getting something basically for free?
yeah.
And so, would it make you happier if we put 8 cards in the packs and had that ninth card as a rewards card?
Good point. We'll move on.
there's no one answer to that.
There's
That
no,
you know,
no one answer.
you have
No, no, no.
50 people, you're going to get
Yeah, you are going to get different answers for that
different answers.
because not everyone. I mean, you always and still put out binders, and they quite often have a single nine card page in there with a promo card or something,
Right.
something different. Which
Let me
I've
just interrupt you just for a
loved.
second there.
Mm,
I just want to make a point about that. So this is where I will sort of pat myself and ourselves on the back a little bit because for the most part, through the years, there weren't a lot of binders being made to support these products. It's like you put the boxes out, you put the cards out, you know, and then people were sort of left to their own devices to figure out how to store them. And
mm,
I always felt very passionately that, and truth is, whether anyone wants to believe this or not, we generally don't make anything on binders. We don't. I mean, we our goal is to break even on binders, and we don't always even do that. But I feel like it's a necessary ancillary part of the
mm.
collecting, the making of these cards and the collecting of these cards
Yeah.
needs to be a part of the whole process. So so we've faithfully been doing that. There's been a very few instances where we didn't make binders, and that was usually for something that was like a collector set, something very small. Um, but yeah, I think that's really important, and it always sort of made me, shrug like why couldn't some of these other companies make binders? I mean,
Mm.
it's not difficult.
It's a constant frustration for me with the modern product, and I've said that to Upper Deck on a
Yeah,
number of occasions.
yeah.
It
Anyway,
it does frustrate me,
go,
but
go ahead.
one of the other things. So let's talk about the touchstones of collecting that I love. So you got the binders, promo
Yep,
cards. You guys always do right by collectors and promo cards. I especially love the fact that people can send in to you for promo cards. I think
sure.
that's a wonderful thing. I miss the sell sheets. I'll be honest with you. I used to love the sell sheets. How come they kind of went by the wayside? Was that a distribution marketing kind of just stopped happening for some reason, or?
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying about that. That was a tough choice that we made years ago. They do look beautiful, and I know a
Mm,
lot of people like to add them to their binders. Part of the problem was the well, several things really. One was cost.
of
They're
course.
expensive to produce, and a lot of times we would find ourselves printing something. We'd have to print it so far in advance, and we wouldn't necessarily have all of the details of a product worked out. And it would frustrate me to no end to have just
Mm,
printed a sell sheet, glossy, full color images of cards, and then realize that, oh, wait a minute, we just got Robert Downey Jr. to sign cards, or we just got, you know, Hugh Jackman, or whatever it might, and he's not on the
mm.
sell sheet. So
Oh,
now the sell sheet's out of date, and you know that would be very frustrating to me. I never liked when that happened, and it would happen. It seemed to happen more and more that as time went by, we would have more and more key details, key selling points of these products becoming finalized too late in the process.
hmm,
And by the time we get the sell sheet out, it'd be out of date. So
mm, mm,
that was part of it. The cost was a big part of it. And quite honestly, I found that a lot of people didn't use them for what they were originally intended for. That was another thing as well. And that's true for promo cards too. We used to send out, bulk quantities of promo cards to our distributors and dealers. And then the next thing I know, I'd be seeing, stack of 25, Spider-Man promos or Star Trek promos on eBay, for $5 or whatever it might be. And so they weren't being disseminated to potential customers.
Mm.
The intention of a promo card was to promote the product so that we could generate some awareness and
Yeah.
generate more sales. And eventually it just stopped being what it stopped the intention stopped being what it was meant to do. And you know, at a certain point, okay, do I want to spend, I don't know, just picking a number off the top of my head. This isn't
Yeah.
real. But let's just say instead of spending $10,000 on promo cards, bulk promo cards, and sell sheets, do I want to just put that money into the product and make a better product?
Yeah.
Because you know, if I can do that, that'll live on much longer than what the short term benefit might
Mm.
be
Mm.
for those things. Even though I realize people do save them and they stay in their albums, but you know, if I can make the product itself better, that was always
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one goal. And
Yeah.
we still do the promos. We just don't make as many of them as we used
Mm.
to, um, for the reasons I partly just described. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. And one of the other things, there's a frequent discussion backwards and forwards that pops up in the group about the gold seals on the incentive to free cards from those gold seals and their top loaders, or to leave them in there. I'm firmly of the leaving them sealed um, camp, but I think it's mainly the sketch card fellas like to release them from their gold seals. But I've always found it interesting that's there. Do you keep yours in the gold seals?
Yes.
Yes.
I think the way that we issue them is the way they should always remain. Now, having said that, I'll go back to what I've said a few times in this discussion, that what we do is to make people happy.
Of course.
If it makes you happy to take the card out of that holder and undo the gold seal and put it in your 9 pocket page or put it in some other storage receptacle, whatever it might be, your choice. Um, you know, have at it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Here's though where I find the modern age of collecting gets in the way of that. So here's the example, and I'm sure you'll understand this right away.
Hmm.
So I'll have somebody um, email me that says, I took the card out of my holder, I broke the gold seal, took the card out of my holder, I submitted it to PSA, and it
Hmm.
came back, you know, you pick the number, whatever the number is.
6.
Well, first of all, we're not in the business of making cards for PSA to grade them. If people want to do that, I understand and respect it.
Hmm.
I personally collect a lot of, it doesn't have to be PSA, it could be other companies too, Beckett or SGC or whoever. I personally, as a collector slash investor in vintage cards, I mean, if I'm going to spend, you know, a good amount of money on a high end card, you know, I like it to be graded, and I have the certainty of it. I have a hard time spending, you know, meaningful amount of money on a card that isn't graded, that, you know, maybe has been trimmed or maybe
Yeah.
something funny has gone on
Yeah.
with it. I just like the comfort of knowing that, you know, I've got a PSA 5 of, you know, 1940 Superman gum card or whatever. Um, but you know, what can happen to a card once it's taken out of, even in the process of taking it out of the holder? You know, the card could be a 10 in the holder. PSA won't grade it in the holder. I don't think. Maybe eventually they might. I don't know if that's ever been tested, to be honest with you.
No, I
Like,
don't remember
because the
seeing it.
card
Hmm.
in its true natural state is in that holder with our seal. So you'd think that maybe, even though they'd have to put it in a larger than normal holder in order to accommodate that. But anyway, I don't think that's ever happened to my knowledge. So let's
No, I
leave that
haven't
aside.
seen it. Yeah, I haven't seen
But
it.
you could take the card out of the holder. It could be a 10 before it comes out of the holder. You could damage the card just pulling it out of the sleeve.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let alone what happens, now you're going to put it into another sleeve and then mail it and off to the
Someone else
grading
is going to
company.
handle it. Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
you don't know. And look, I'll take responsibility for a lot of things, but I can't take responsibility for that because it's not the way we intended the card to be handled.
Yeah.
And you know, I I don't know what to tell people about that. To be
Yeah.
honest with you,
Well,
I feel bad when people send their cards in for grading and they don't get the grade they want. But
yeah. We always say to people, we have it all the time in the group on Facebook when people say, "Oh, I've got these cards, I sent them in, I didn't get the grades I expected," and I'm firmly, and I think a lot of people agree with me on this, is that a card isn't guaranteed to be PSA 10 out of the pack because it's gone through a
no,
process. It's a physical product. The conditions of manufacture may vary slightly each time a production happens, I'm guessing. um, but I think there's certainly, since COVID, with the market and what it's done and the influx of new people across all spectrums, but Marvel, not sure how much you're aware of the kind of modern what's going on with Marvel, but it's had a spike and then a crash.
yeah,
And there's this odd expectation now where people expect, because the prices of the boxes are significantly higher, there's an expectation that they're going to recoup on what they pull from the box. So straight away that disappoints a lot of people because their expectations are off with the potential reality of what might happen. But then when they open it, they expect it to be of a certain quality and standard that they can then go and grade it and maybe improve their chances of recouping. So there's a lot of that now, and some collectors like to do that. And I'm not dissing them at all, but
yeah,
it's not kind of my um, approach to things. So I can kind of understand it, but I do think it interesting that people message you now about some of that stuff. But I guess you still issue the gold sealed stuff, don't you? So um,
yeah.
that's interesting. I was going back to one of the things, one of the sets of yours that I've been chipping away at from the autos and point of view is the Chronicles of Riddick set that you put out in, when was that? 2007, 2008, I want to say.
Is
Um,
that right?
Somewhere around then. And I've been having
Yeah.
a bugger of a time finding the two gold seal incentives for that. I mean, Keith David and Claudia Black, but both on pitch black stock. Actually, in the seal, I've seen about three pop up in the last 2 years, and there's not many pop up at all that have been busted out of their gold seal. But of course, I don't want that. I want it in the seal. But it goes back to that whole thing of the sell sheet, because I guess it goes the other way. Because on that sell sheet, you had costume relics, but in the end, I believe only one came out, which was Vin Diesel's T-shirt.
I'll
So,
take your word for it. I'll
so
be
that's
honest with you. I don't remember all the dirty details of that product.
no, 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 no. I
I
didn't.
did. I
I
did
didn't
love
expect you to off
making
the top
it.
of your head.
I will say that I loved making that set of cards, especially the pitch black
Mm.
subset or
Yeah,
bonus set, depending on how you want to refer to it. It's one of my favorite movies,
I love it.
and
I
that
absolutely love it.
that original. I mean, the Chronicles of Riddick. You could argue good, bad, otherwise. Um, Fun to see the character live on, if nothing else. But the original movie, boy, what a good movie that was.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. The original movie is astonishing.
suspenseful, horror, terror, sci-fi. It had a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, but it's the signers that you got on that. I mean, not only is I think it's Vin Diesel's only auto to date on a card.
I think so, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, and you also hold the honor of having Robert Downey Jr.'s only Marvel IP auto on a card.
Mm-hmm.
But you had Tan Dewey Newton, you had Judy Dench, Carl Urban. I mean, that's I mean, not to mention that's a bonkers set of actors to be in one film together, which indicates how crazy a swing Chronicles of Riddick was. But I just love the fact that you've got such a breadth of talent on card. And that's what I think I've always personally kind of respected that you do that um, with the sets that you bring out. When I was looking online for this, I found a post that you did, and you won't remember. You may remember this post. It's from the seventh
I'll
of October.
try.
It's from the 7th of October 2015. And granted, you have been to sleep since then, but basically, it was you on your Facebook page, Steve Charendoff here. I'm particularly psyched about the Fred Dryer autograph card. Now, I found that when I was Googling, and I was like, yes, that exists. And I love your enthusiasm for it because I used to love Hunter when I was younger, and I hadn't realized that he had that backstory of being an NFL star as well. So
Hmm.
what what set was it that you had a Fred Dry autograph card in?
That was Agents of Shield.
Was it Agents of Shield?
Yeah.
I need to find this autograph card. So straight away, I'm heading to eBay because I didn't realize because it doesn't actually say in the post what. I mean, it mentions Marvel TV mythology, so I guess I could have figured it out. But no, hats off to you for that deep cut. Um, if
He was a good guy to work with too. I don't always get to speak directly to the talent,
mm, mm,
but he was a good dude.
I found some stories. I found an article on Star Trek, the Star Trek website, where I think you were promoting Discovery season two, where you talked somewhat passionately about your time on Star Trek and having, obviously engaged with some of the talent there. And you dropped Leonard Nimoy's name as well. How much involvement did you kind of have with? I mean, obviously you reached out to them all for on-card autographs, and I believe did I read you've captured every major guest star in Star Trek on an autograph card from the original series? Did I read that?
From the original series, there are still a couple of people that we have never been able to find.
Ah,
Diana Ewing, I think, is sort of the biggest of those. Not that she had a huge career outside of
mm,
playing that one role on Star Trek, but in terms of her being a guest star on Star Trek and the role that she had in the show, she was pretty significant, and we've never been able to find her. Um, Lots of leads that have come up dry, but I think she may just be one of those rare individuals who had her moment in Hollywood, left the industry, and just didn't want to be part of
mm,
it
mm,
anymore.
mm,
And I suspect that even if we have at some point inadvertently found her, we've been turned away under the pretense that it's not her or this isn't the right address or what have you. We've tried so many different times. I find it hard to believe that we didn't come across the real Diana Ewing at some point. But look, you're not going to get everybody all the time. Um, but we keep trying. You never know. There might, we've gone many times, many with lots of projects. I mean, Pierce Brosnan with James Bond was one of those people who, you know, took us like 10 years before he said yes to us. Halle Berry took an awfully long time as well. Gosh, there's a handful of people like that. We just got actually for Game of Thrones. Um, while we're on this topic, we just got Charon Hines, who played Mance
oh
Rayder
yes, yeah, yeah.
on Game of Thrones. For the longest time, it was like, nah, he's not. He's too busy. Like the guy's an actor, and he's very accomplished actor
Mm,
and very
mm,
busy actor. So I can understand, why some people, might not want to be distracted by signing trading cards.
mm,
It may not mean anything to them.
mm,
Um, most of the actors, though, I think, are happy to participate, and they have an appreciation and a sense of um, fondness or affinity, if you will, for the fans of the franchises the, that they work on, or just the whatever the work is that
mm,
they're doing. It's a TV show or a movie, what have you.
mm,
That
mm,
there are these fans out there who are very passionate and they want to give something back. I mean, I think that was true for Daniel Craig, true for I think in the end for Pierce Brosnan, certainly I think Robert Downey Jr. when he signed Iron Man cards for us. I mean, that was the message that came through to me is, look, there are fans out there. We want to respect them that, these are franchises that have fans. There's a lot of things that these actors work on, these productions that actors work on, where they don't have fans in the sense of what we think of as fans, where
mm,
they'll go to conventions and they'll collect merchandise, and you know a lot of times there isn't that dynamic in place, so
mm,
they
mm,
don't even get asked because it's
mm,
not a thing. It's not part of it's not part of what the franchise is about. But when you get into science fiction and fantasy and comics, then there is that dynamic. So anyway, um, I sort of lost track of where
No,
you were
that's
going with
okay.
the.
To be honest with you, I was having a moment of self-indulgence. Could you mind if I very quickly, personally, thank you for free cards in my collection?
Okay, sure.
Because this means an awful lot to me. So I have two movies. Are you familiar with desert island discs? The concept of being stuck on a desert island and
Oh,
you've got so many records you can I think you can have like 10 records, the complete works of William Shakespeare, the Bible, and one other book. It's kind of a British radio thing. It's been going for years. Anyway,
okay,
if I was on a desert island and I could only have two movies, one of them would be Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And that
okay.
was possibly one of the I saw that when I'm going to date myself now. I saw that when I was 10, just after, no, I think I was 9. It was just after my father died. And I was allowed to go it was a school trip and it was an evening thing. And the nearest cinema was 12 miles away. And we didn't have a car because my mum didn't drive. So for the longest time, I couldn't go and see a film without missing the end of it. So Return of the Jedi, I left the cinema because the last bus home to the
Oh,
town where I lived left at 5:30, and the matinee showing didn't get out till 5:15. So for like 3 years, I never saw the last 15 minutes of Return of the Jedi until until the video came out, until the VHS came out. I did actually end up reading it in a comic book, but um, for that reason, I was 2 years ago. I managed to acquire this card,
yeah. I had a feeling that's what was coming.
the Ricardo Montalban. Now, I've got other cards in here from this movie. One's
Yep.
from Cinema 2000, which is the actor who played Terrell. But this card in particular,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the ones I talk about, that just feeling of joy, at
Mm-hmm.
just having
Yep.
it. I mean, he must have been quite elderly when he signed it, I'm guessing. Um, but that was
Yeah.
from your first Star Trek movies set, which I think was 2007, 2008. Um,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
so that was astonishing. And what I do, what I do is I collect all of that format autograph from that Star Trek movies because I know you carried them on through the sets, but I put them in the binder for the first one.
Nice.
I think I'm about 20 off having all of them. I've been really motoring the past few years, and there's,
Okay.
believe me, that's a valuable binder. The other movie is Casino Royale, the Daniel Craig movie. Um, Partly because I went to the premiere of it in Leicester Square in London, and partly because it's a bloody good film.
Yeah.
About
Certainly one of the best.
about a month ago, I finally, and this took a long time, I finally found one of these.
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen
Mm-hmm.
on card auto. I believe there were two different versions of that, um, in two products that you put out in the noughties. Um, but that's
Yeah.
one of them. And then the final card, I mean, I'm spoilt for choice here. There's several relic cards from that movie, that just make my hair stand on end. I'm still to find the playing card, although there are two on eBay at the moment, but I don't have the funds at the moment. But last year I managed to acquire the poker chip.
Ah, nice.
Now, with these, begs the question, how that's a remarkably inventive thing to do. And I imagine in my uneducated knowing about the intricacies of production, possibly quite a difficult thing to make a reality within a trading card format. How do you guys come up with these ideas, and B, what's the trickiest one you've had to pull off that you've been like most proud of, I guess?
Well, production wise, not that difficult. Um, when the studio gives us those those poker chips,
Hmm.
like we told them what we were going to do with them, and they were cool with that. And I guess we could have kept them intact, but then of course you have half as many cards.
Hmm.
So cutting them up allows for more people to collect, and we didn't have that many of them to begin with.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and I never like to make things too scarce. Um, but it's all part of the process of being creative with these projects. Sometimes it's just driven by what's available to us. I mean, in
Hmm.
that instance, Eon Productions came to us and said, would you like poker chips? My inclination, I say this all the time, when the studio asks if you want something, you don't say no.
Hmm.
You take it and you do what you can with it.
You make it work.
Because I mean, you don't want to say it. You don't ever want to say no because you always want them to keep them feeling like they're always doing good things for you, and you want them to keep coming back, offering you more things. So if you
Yeah,
just keep saying yes, then you know it's a it's always just more positive to be positive.
of course.
The risk of being redundant there. Um, anyhow, so they gave us those. They could have given us something else. Um, but they gave us poker chips, and so we turned those into trading cards. If we didn't have poker chips, we would have done something.
Well,
We would have gone a different direction with
you had
what we did
you
have.
had Vesper Lynd's business cards. Got one of those. You had the table felt from the casino,
Yeah.
the playing cards, the aforementioned playing cards. I've
Mm-hmm.
got some Quantum of Solace relics in there that are like this thick. They're shattered windscreens from Jeeps that are used in
Yeah.
car
Well,
chases.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to shove off soon.
No,
But
no,
I'll,
that's fine. That's
but I- but
fine. I only have
I'll
one
tell
more
the,
question for you.
I'll tell this story because
Mhm.
I think it's a good one. So, you know, like I mentioned, the studio asked us if we want things, and one day the person who handles this material from Eon Productions that makes the James Bond films called me up and said, "Hey, we've got some windshields from the Aston Martins, and because there's more than one, of everything in these
Yeah,
films,
yeah.
and the police vehicles, and so we've got these windshields, and we know you like to do weird things with the cards. Would you like these? So what's my response going to be? Yes,
Yes. Hmm.
and then I'll figure out what to do with them. Okay, but so she starts telling me about these windshields. They're big and they're full size. It's not just like a few, you know, it's not like just a piece. So she's starting to tell me about the weight and how to ship them and how expensive that's going to be because they're coming from the UK to the United States where we are. And I said, you know what? Don't send them to my office. Send them to this factory out in Wisconsin where we get the cards made, um, and they'll cut these into smaller pieces, and then we'll mount them into cards. And all right, so she does that, and so anyway, the shipment goes out. big, huge crate shows up at the factory in Wisconsin, and the guy who handles our business there calls us up, and he is beside himself. He doesn't know how to tell us this. He's like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I got to break this news to you. But these windshields, they're all shattered. They're a mess. They're, they got holes in them. They look like bullet holes, and they're, and that, how windshield glass
Yeah.
spider
Yeah.
fractures, it's all that. And we just sort of laughed. I said, no, that's exactly the way they're supposed to be. That you got exactly what we wanted and what you should have received. So don't sweat it. The guy was so worried that we were
Oh.
going to be distraught over having spent literally, I think, thousands of dollars to ship this stuff overseas, and it ended up being exactly what we wanted. And you see the cards
Mm,
and
mm.
what they are,
Oh,
and
that's stunning.
if you're lucky enough to find one that's got a bullet hole in it, that's obviously one of the more cool cards
Yeah, I bet.
to
I bet.
find.
I'll have to closely investigate mine. Right, one more question, and then
Yeah.
I'll let you go. This is the big one, so there might not be an answer for it.
Okay.
If you
I'll do my
got,
best.
if you could do a Marvel set next year,
Hmm.
what would you like to do, and what would you like to do that you hadn't done before?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that I really tend not to dwell on the things that are out of my control, and that I really don't sit around too often thinking, well, geez, if I could just have a chance to do one thing,
Yeah,
with
yeah, I
this,
appreciate that.
that's
Yeah.
what I would do. But
Mm.
um, wow, what would I do? Um, we got the Robert Downey card signed, and I still think, like Robert Downey, he's the centerpiece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, playing that iconic role. And no one else has gotten him to sign cards. And to me, that card, there's two of them. There's one of
That's
him
right.
as the human, and there's the other of him and of the
In the
the Iron
armor.
Man
Mm.
armor. Um, it's kind of hard to top that in terms of anything connected to the movies.
Yeah.
Because I always come back to whenever I'm working on these franchises that have never been, like adequately exploited or ever been exploited before. Like when I took over the Star Trek franchise from Ken Baroff, you know, I I remember having a conversation with Ken. I don't know if you remember this specifically, but he was we were transitioning from him being the guy to me being the guy with Star Trek, and I remember him saying to me, I've made all these Star Trek sets over the years, and I kind of feel like, I've run out of ideas, and it's a good time to move on to something else.
Mm.
And what I didn't say this to him at the time because I didn't want to make him feel bad, was, dude, you're doing me the greatest favor in the world because there is everything left to do with Star Trek that hasn't been done. And one of the first things that I wanted to do was an original series card set that we know William Shatner had never signed autograph
Mm.
cards before. Leonard Nimoy had never signed cards before. All of those cast members, I got the first crack at that. So, in terms of Marvel, I mean, I got Robert Downey to do, what needed to be done there. And I think in the long term, it's just my own point of view, that card is arguably the single most important Marvel trading card outside of anything that Stan Lee ever did for us. I think that's the single most important Marvel trading card that's ever been made. So, when I view something in that regard, what else do I want to do?
Mm.
Like when Stan did the first sketch cards for us, he did those half Spidey heads, I think they were, and then in a future project, I asked him to do other sketch cards, but I didn't want him to just repeat what he had already done. So I asked him to do other characters, which he did, which made it more fun
Mm.
and I think more interesting for collectors too. I don't know if I can give you a better answer than that.
No. Well, listen, mission accomplished is a pretty good answer. That's what I'm taking from it. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I mean, you've kind of nailed it. You've hit that high. I mean, not you had the Iron Man armor as well
Yeah,
within
that was pretty cool. We got lucky. The studio gave us
those
some of
relic
that
cards. Yeah,
material, and we obviously took advantage of making those cards.
yeah.
That and some of the other um, costume materials from that first movie. I remember we had Jeff Bridges' tie, I think from that movie,
You had his shirt as well.
and his
Hmm.
shirt. I mean, there's probably a handful of actors from those movies who've never signed cards. I don't know how many of them because I've sort of stopped paying attention
Yeah.
to it
I don't think
that
Jeff
quickly.
Bridges has signed again.
Yeah, he was a good Ryan Reynolds. He never signed, as far as I know, for anybody else. And
No,
he did sign cards for us for the Wolverine movie.
that's right.
Um, Now, aside from what I said before about a lot of times these actors want to give something back to the fans and acknowledge the fans, and that all I think is true. I believe that. Um, but you could also ask yourself the question: well, if that's true, why aren't they signing cards for anybody else? Because the fans don't exist, within my control. They exist, for
Mm.
the world at large. Um, And I think the answer to that is that because we are an entertainment card company and because I have been doing autograph deals with talent now exclusively, almost exclusively within the entertainment segment. Um, I mean, I estimated recently, I think we've done something like 3,000 autograph card deals in the 25 years almost that we've been in
Wow.
business.
Wow.
Um, with actors. Not there's nothing to do with sports stars or anything like that.
Mm.
And we've worked with pretty much every major and most even minor talent agencies in the U.S. and in the U.K. Um, it's been a repetitive relationship building process. So, a lot of times when I approach the agent for somebody like a Robert Downey Jr. or a Ryan Reynolds, it's somebody that I've worked with before on another
Gotcha.
project,
Yeah.
probably for someone who for actors of lower stature, not to diminish anybody's career. But it makes it easier for us to get those deals done
Mm.
and for them to say yes because we pay our bills, we follow through, we do what needs to get done. They also know the way we go about our business with the cards being signed on card instead of stickers, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't stop some people from signing stickers. I just personally don't like them, and I don't think with maybe one or two very minor exceptions for very specific reasons that we got something done on a not even a sticker. Um, but anyway, all the autographs pretty much have been on card. We
Mm.
just don't do stickers, um, and that's a quality issue too that resonates with some of these people.
Absolutely.
So we're able to get things done a lot of times where other companies who might have success landing the franchise for trading cards. And now the reality sets in. Well, can you get the key people to sign cards? And it doesn't always work out, but thankfully for us, I mean, knock on wood, like we've been able to get pretty much with few exceptions, pretty much everybody that we've pursued, there really are not too many actors that we've ever wanted to sign cards for us who didn't say yes. And it'll again, a lot of it comes down to those relationships.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, that's absolutely remarkable. And personally speaking, I think I can safely speak for everyone listening and watching. The the approach that you take and the pride and the respect that you take for the set, Marvel and otherwise, is very much appreciated. So, thank you
Thanks. Thank
for
you.
that. It really is a pleasure to speak to you. Sci-fihobby.com is your website.
It
So
is.
we will put that in the show notes. I think everyone knows about it anyway, because they're always going there or they used to go there
I,
quite often in the
I,
Marvel
I
world.
would hope that most people who are watching this would
Well,
know how to find us. But yes, that's
absolutely,
always
absolutely.
helpful.
Well, there's always listen. I used to work in West End Theatre, and I was always told that it doesn't matter if you've sold tickets for the 300th show of Les Mis, it's always someone's first time seeing it. So, that's the approach I like to take.
Good point.
Um, all right, Steve, I will let you go. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Do you
Thanks for the time.
remember? Do you remember how I said we sign off our shows?
Oh,
And this is where I always say to people that they might want to write it down. It's enjoy collecting.
oh, enjoy collecting.
Perfect.
Now, you know what? Definitely enjoy collecting, but collect what you love, collect what makes you happy. And you know what? If you can make money as part of it, if the financial part of it works out, great. But it's one of the. I don't mean to make a speech here as we're about to
No,
sign
you
off.
you carry on.
But, okay, but here's what I will say is that one of the reasons that I've stuck with this business as long as I have is that we do make people happy,
Mm,
and that the fundamental motivation for collecting the cards that we make is not financial. It's not because you're busting open packs and, oh, look what I got and I'm going to throw it on eBay. It's
yes.
like busting open packs. Oh, look what I got. It's going in my album. That's the difference. And it's because the people that I interact with regularly and who collect our cards have that approach that keeps me going, because we're making them happy. They're building their collections. They're not just turning around and you know it's not about the money as much as it is about just finding stuff that finding cards that makes them happy and adds to
Mm,
their collections. So
mm.
there you
Well,
go.
you've absolutely made me very happy. I mean, I can't even begin to. If we had days, I'd go for every single card in there and tell you a story, but I won't. I'll let you go.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right,
I
take
appreciate
care.
it.
Thank you,
Yep.
Steve.